Welcome to Change Happened, Then What? Where each week in Season 1 of the Friendship Chronicles, I share real-life stories from incredible people I've met over the past 20-plus years. Stories of change, challenge, and what comes next. These are the moments that shape them, the pivots that led to purpose, and the raw emotions in between. My hope is that these conversations inspire you, offer hope, and in the end, leave you with a smile. So, wherever you are, take a deep breath and let's dive in, because change happens, and that's where the story really begins. I'm your host, Heather Holt, and I'm so happy to have you here today. This week, I'm going to introduce you to Deb, who is an amazing artist. She designed all of our artwork when we had our store in Burlington. Over the years, like most of the people you've heard about in this season, Deb would become a friend as well, one who I would catch up with whenever I could. We would talk about our children who are around the same age, and then time and space would separate us, physically, but not emotionally. Today, you're going to hear about her emotional journey of how she got to keep her husband, even though he would never be the man he once was. After a tragic medical event while on a motorcycle ride with his friends, leading to a horrific accident, and then how Deb would have to reinvent herself too.
It definitely was a day that we don't forget. We had just purchased our house, and 2 months later, he decided to take a motorcycle ride with two friends, and he had heart failure while he was riding his motorcycle, so his heart stopped, and he slid off the motorcycle. There wasn't even a scratch on the motorcycle. When he landed with his arms stretched out. He was virtually dead, but the impact brought him back to life. But in the landing with his armpit out, it damaged all of his nerves. The EMT team rushed him to the hospital over in Plattsburgh, and he broke every rib in 3 to 4 places and punctured all his organs. And back, 10 years earlier, he had a quadruple bypass, so it affected the rod going down through his chest. He also had damaged his scapula on the back part of the shoulder, which, housed all the nerves too. So it was that, along with a traumatic brain injury, cracked pelvis. He basically broke everything from his groin up through his shoulders. And he ended up being over in Plattsburgh for 4 days, and then we had to wait for a bed to open up in Burlington. So he was there and then put into a medically induced coma for 3 months. He came out of it really, delirious, and had, he had just like teams of doctors. And, I found myself having to be up at the hospital daily and being his advocate and just, pushing through and trying and communicating with teams of doctors and being very strong and keeping track of everything too. So he ended up having, and he still has it today, CRPS.
Before we go on, I want to pause for a moment and talk about what Deb just mentioned. CRPS, or Complex Regional Pain Syndrome. If you've never heard of it, you're not alone. It's rare, often misunderstood, and absolutely brutal. CRPS is a chronic nerve condition that causes excruciating pain, usually in a limb after an injury or surgery, and the pain is often way out of proportion to the original trauma. The body just doesn't shut the pain signals off. It's actually been called the suicide disease because of how intense and relentless the pain can be, and how isolating it becomes. And if the phrase sounds familiar to you, it's because we've heard it before in this season. Brooke, used the same word to describe her experience with trigeminal neuralgia, another condition that hijacks the nervous system in unimaginable ways. So when Deb says her husband was never the same after the accident, this is part of what she means. It's not just the trauma of the event, it's the day in, day out reality of managing pain that most of us can't even begin to comprehend. Now, I'll let Deb continue in her own words, sharing more about the treatments and what daily life looked like for them.
He has a real serious nerve damage from his fingertips of his left hand going up through his shoulder. And then when he is in intense pain, it's like a sympathetic nerve that runs down through his back and his right arm, so then he really can't touch things. It does get intense for him. It is accelerated. The pain gets accelerated with cold temperatures and dampness, so that's largely why we moved south, so that we're in a more moderate temperature and climate-controlled house, which is easier on his body. There's no treatment or cure for this, and the CRPS is it's the highest level of pain known to medical science. It's nicknamed the suicide disease due to the intense, constant pain. And there's not a lot of attention put to this because there's such a small percentage of people having this, the syndrome, because it's largely due to a motorcycle accident. We're tremendously thankful for the doctors that helped us. They did the best that they could, but he really was prescribed, a lot of heavy painkillers, which, for 3 years, he was prescribed oxycodone, Oxycontin, a fentanyl patch, which he wore on his arm, gabapentin, and between those 4 medications, they all had to be administered at specific times, which was really hard to do when he was feeling, intense with the pain. And it was twice he had a little overlap, didn't do it intentionally, but twice he had an overdose. Rush him to the emergency room and give him
naloxone or whatever.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then during that 3-year time period, he was just so weak and out of it all the time. About fentanyl. It's just dangerous, and it's a fentanyl patch that has to be moved around on his arm every 3 days. And he went, from his normal weight of 160 down to 115 pounds, and he was just wasting away. And during this time, I kept asking the doctors, what else can we do? We have to get him off of this. He wasn't a drug addict, but he was dependent on it. He had to have it. They didn't know what else to do and so I spent time, Googling and looking and saying, where's a good pain clinic? What does this one do? Tell me more about CRPS, and there just seemed to be dead ends. And then one night I found Rutgers, and I found Dartmouth Hitchcock, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make an appointment with both of these. Let's just see what they have to say. So Dartmouth, it took 10 months to get the appointment. Rutgers, 14 months. So we went to Dartmouth, and as soon as we got to Dartmouth, the doctor who manages the pain clinic specializes in CRPS, and she's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what you're doing, but you need to kick the opiates. And there's this new trial off-label medication that only 2 other people in the country are on, and it's called LDN, low-dose naltrexone. And what it does is that medicine, and he's on that now, it's a compound medicine. And what it does is that medicine speaks to the brain in the same way that Oxycontin speaks to the brain. So there was no transition in terms of the way that it heals you. So in order to do that, we got onto this cocktail of non-narcotic medications. There were 4 narcotics he was on, a total of 10 months to titrate off of those opiate drugs one at a time. We did it. 10 months later, drove down to Dartmouth, and then they prescribed him the LDN. And, and during that 10 months, it was very hard for him to be without those drugs, too. When he was off of all 4 drugs, we had to wait for a period of a week. And that was really intense. And we had no guidance as to what to expect. I couldn't believe it. We were naive to it. So, he was having convulsions, and I didn't know what to do, so I Googled. And so then I found this clinic down in Florida that, fortunately, I just had a conversation with this person who was a caregiver. He said, couldn't do anything for us, but here's what to expect. And I said, okay, that's great. Another 2 hours, and he should be through with that, and then he'll be okay. We had no idea, no. And so I was kind of surprised because, I know doctors are busy, but there was no guidance, and no guidance from when he was, on all those painkillers for 3 years in Vermont. Like nothing. We got through it. We drove down to Dartmouth, and he started the low-dose naltrexone. And 2 weeks later, he woke up one day and said, I feel incredible. And
Wow.
it's like, oh my gosh, this is really just such a relief, because it was so hard. In the coming months, he started regaining his life back.
I can't even imagine what this experience was truly like for Deb. Walking beside the man she once knew as vibrant and full of life, now reduced to just a fraction of himself. A man dependent on medication that she clearly feared, yet she's doing everything in her power to find a safer alternative path forward. Her deep desire to ease his pain without risking his well-being is evident in every step she took. Through it all, somehow she never lost hope. She kept it together. Her steadfast devotion to serving her family shone through in all of those moments more than ever. It was during this time that the depth of her strength, resilience, and love truly came into view, in my opinion. And all of this made me wonder, what was it like for Deb having to become a full-time caretaker after being part of such a fun, lighthearted, jovial couple all of those years?
Worked and stretched myself on, being a caregiver and a wife, and, and taking care of, things. His needs were 24/7. And when I would, be at work, I had a routine where I would call him at a certain time twice a day and to check in on him, but I was always very nervous about it too. He was pretty much like a patient in the house. I just had to constantly help him and, with everything. He could feed himself, but he wasn't really that hungry because of the opioids. I definitely had PTSD, major. And I ended up going to see a therapist who focused on loss, because I really did lose my husband during this. It was just really traumatic for me because I never knew if there was going to be another day. When we found Dartmouth Hitchcock and went there, that was a positive experience because the pain never really went away. It just became more controlled. Still is that today. Because it's really like every 4 hours he takes medicine. He takes about 600 pills a month. So, along with insulin too, because he's insulin dependent. I think the PTSD was really long lasting. You get comfortable with it, and then he has 3 heart attacks. So I have periods of time when I feel I'm relaxed, and then times when I'm just really, really awake about what's going on. I don't think that will really change because he has some serious heart issues. We know that there's going to be like a next chapter coming up. That's hard, but I do feel like, every day is a gift with him.
And then there's their daughter, Livia. I knew she had gone into the medical profession, but I didn't know why, and I never thought to ask. But in the middle of our conversation, I found myself wondering, how does a daughter carry all of this? How does witnessing that kind of pain, that kind of transformation in your own family, shape who you become? So I asked Deb, what about Livy?
She chose the medical field because everything that's gone on, David, with his quadruple bypass. I had 2 kinds of breast cancer, both discovered early. I'm 17 years out and clean and everything fine. I think that the hardest part was, him being in a medically induced coma for 3 months. It definitely had an impact. Livy was like my shadow every day, and she was in high school at the time, and they allowed her kind of just be tutored at that time. It was just too hard, and I think gave her a lot of insight to the medical field, and she just felt like it was going to drive her in that direction. She went to UVM, which is a really great science school, and she majored in nutrition, but she's now going in a direction of being a medical professional more than nutrition, but the nutrition information helps her with what she's doing.
They are so proud of their daughter, who she has become, and honestly, who wouldn't be? Graduating a prestigious college and working in the medical field that definitely needs more compassionate hearts like hers. Way to go, Livy. I asked Deb to share a little bit more about their days and what they look like now that they're in a more stable environment. David is on a non-narcotic medication. It doesn't take the pain away entirely, but it does allow him to manage it a bit better. Also, what does life look like for her now, both as caretaker and wife? I wanted to know the rhythm of their days. Has it changed? How does she balance love and responsibility? And what does it mean for her to show up day after day for someone that you love, especially when the path isn't easy, but the commitment is unwavering?
Wake up, have coffee, and make a nice breakfast. He plays his keyboard. He can play a little bit. He can only play with one hand because of the other hand. I go to yoga 3-4 times a week. I walk a lot. I've been painting, and I love to paint. I haven't painted this much in a long time. Focus on cooking. We eat really healthy, lots of fruits and vegetables. We take a lot of little trips too, so that's nice. He keeps telling me that, for the first time in his life, he feels like he is in such a great place because he has me here and there's time together. We're living in a beautiful area of the world. It's so pretty here. And as much as we're both Vermonters and we love Vermont, but this is we just feel like we're enjoying the fruits of our labor. We're not in a retirement community. We're just in a quiet, private treed neighborhood. And our life today is just relaxed.
It's amazing. The story of resilience, of grit, of true grace, a family that almost lost it all in a single day, and yet somehow they're still here, holding on to every breath like it could be their last, still finding joy and smiles in the small things like their morning cups of coffee. It's not the life they planned, but it's the life they're living with open hearts and unwavering love. Before we close, I ask Deb that one last question, the same one I've asked all of my guests this season. What keeps you smiling today?
Because it's a new day. You have another chance at doing something spectacular.
And I know Deb, she's been through so much to have not gained some serious wisdom along the way. So before we said goodbye, I asked her for that one piece of advice, the thing she'd want you to hear wherever you are, whatever you're going through.
Trust yourself. Do not give up. be really strong and know that there's a lot of inner strength to get through anything.
Be really strong. I know there's somebody out there that needs to hear that. I am truly blessed to have been able to have this conversation with Deb, to be reminded yet again of how fragile life really is and how quickly everything can change when we least expect it. Thank you, Deb, for your grace, your strength, your honesty in sharing this journey with us today. Deb mentioned her love of painting during our conversation, and I just knew I had to share it with you. So I put together a video showcasing her beautiful artwork. It's now available on my website, changehappenedpodcast.com. Go check it out. Just click on the Season 1 guests. Scroll to Deb's bio, and you'll find her video there. You'll also find bios and links for all of this season's incredible guests, so feel free to explore and revisit any story that's touched your heart. And if you haven't taken the survey yet, do so now. It's still open. If you found value in this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend, following the podcast, or leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more than you know, and I'm so grateful for your support. Our theme music is Smile by Sidewalk Prophets from their album, Things That Got Us Here. You can hear more from them at sidewalkprophets.com. Want to dive deeper into today's conversation? Visit changehappenedpodcast.com for guest information, bonus content, and more. Have your own Then What moment you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Email me anytime at changepodcast@yahoo.com. Change Happened, Then What is written, edited, and produced by me, Heather Holt, at Holt Hill Studios, with the enthusiastic support of my 2 sidekicks, Waylon and Dalton. Until next time, take care of your heart and keep smiling.